All right, good morning, everybody. This is our January board meeting, and Reverend Kukla was generous enough to have us in his church again, and he has an 11 o'clock commitment. So we're going to keep this pretty sharp for today. And we may have a few other people join us, and then we have a few board members that are coming a little bit late due to inclement weather and some other appointments. So we're going to get to our official voting as a board at the end of the meeting, probably the last 30 minutes, but we will be done at 11. And if it's a little kind of sharp and quick meeting, it's just because we have a lot to get through. But I first wanted to, as we always do, open with an opening prayer and meditation. And I'm quite honored to have Rabbi Dan Fink doing it today. Rabbi Dan Fink and I have been friends for 4 or 5 years now. I converted to Judaism through Rabbi Dan, and he's just been unexpected in my life, and my home congregation, Congregation Ahavat Beth Israel, has just completely changed my life for the better, and Rabbi Dan Fink has been a big part of that, including helping us at CABI think about and then actually take the action to found this Interfaith Power and Light group with basically everyone else at this table. And then last thing, I'm glad to have this on the record for our actual board meeting, because Rabbi Dan is also retiring this year. So we get his opening prayer at our official annual meeting and board meeting and the year of his retirement. So Rabbi Dan?
Thanks, Adam.
Yeah.
And it's been a pleasure and a privilege to work with you and IPL. In our Jewish liturgical cycle, where we work our way through the Torah every year, this week we're in the book of Exodus. The portion is called Bo, and it contains the second half of the 10 plagues in Egypt, leading up to the Exodus. And traditionally, the plagues, the pshat, the simple reading of the plagues is God says, I'll bring these plagues upon Egypt, and they're a kind of punishment, they're a kind of show of divine power. But Rabbi Arthur Waskow suggests that there's another way to read the plagues. If you look at them, they're almost all connected with natural phenomenon. They're kind of natural phenomenon gone awry. Pestilence, vermin, locusts, boils, darkness, the pollution of the waters becoming blood. And Waskow suggests that the plagues can be seen as a kind of reaction of the natural world, that there's a connection, and this is deeply rooted in the Hebrew Bible, that there's a connection between the land itself and human deeds. After the first murder with Cain and Abel, God says, the blood of Abel cries out from the earth. So the natural world seems to respond to human action, and perhaps the plagues are a kind of response of the natural world to years and years, centuries of servitude, slavery, and oppression. Later in Deuteronomy, we see again a lot of this, that God says that, if you follow my commandments, if you are true to the covenant, you'll get rain in its season, and if you don't, I'll shut off the clouds, and there'll be drought, and the harvest will fail. So woven throughout the text is a kind of inextricable bond between human behavior and the response of the land. Now, it's more complicated than a simple arithmetic, right? Because we also know Ecclesiastes and Job, and there are books that remind us that, the same rain falls on the houses of the just and the unjust, and so too the same drought. And life is very, very frequently unfair, and the righteous suffer, and the evil prosper, and there are good people farming the land who don't get good yields, and there are terrible people farming it who harvest in great abundance. So it's more complicated than a one-to-one simple arithmetic relationship. But nonetheless, I think with that caveat, this understanding is important for us, because we who are in a time of existential challenge with climate change see that the land, the earth, does indeed respond to choices that human beings make. And so, as we look at these plagues, they lead us toward a vision of deliverance, of redemption. But when we remember them in the Passover Seder, we remember the 10 plagues, and for each plague we take a drop of wine out of our glass to diminish our cup, because we remember the suffering imposed by these plagues. So as we move forward, may we remember and pay heed to the complex but real relationship between the choices that we make as human beings and the way that the natural world responds to our choices. And may we choose an end to plague and a path towards sustainability and promise and life for humankind and for all of God's creation. Can you add some? May this be God's will.
Can you hear it? So, thanks, Rabbi.
Thanks, Rabbi. Thank you.
I have to add to that a little bit. I feel like that reinterpretation with a more modern lens, to look at a story like that and the spiritual relationship between humanity and nature, I think is fascinating in many different contexts when you look at religions in the Bible. And one of the things that I've been relatively observant with over the years in my Torah observance, and I'm relatively Torah observant, is that there's a commandment in the Hebrew scriptures in the Torah that says not to light a fire on Shabbat. And for most of 2,000 years, especially once lighting a fire became easy, like what's the problem? It's not work, I can take a lighter, I can light a fire. Like why should I not light a fire once a week? But fire has smoke, fire has emissions, fire has a consequence. It puts something into the atmosphere, and so I've kind of eased up on my observance in recent months, but for most of the last 3 or 4 years, I haven't driven a gasoline car on Shabbat. And it's not for traditional Orthodox Jewish reasons where you don't want to leave home or you don't want to work. Or for me, it's linked to climate change in that when I light a fire, I know my gasoline engine is a fire. I'm lighting gasoline that then emits smoke. And it does have a consequence. And so it's good to pause one day a week and realize, wow, maybe this wisdom that 7 days a week, you can't just do whatever you want because you want to light a fire, you want to do this, you want to do that. And so that's been a kind of a big bridging point between my climate advocacy and my Torah observance and my religiosity. So it's another one where maybe after 2,000 years or 3,000 years, there's some wisdom to some of this.
That's why we're here, right?
Thank
That's why we're here doing what we do. So,
Thank you, Rabbi Dan.
Yeah, and I'm gonna run off. I'm
Yes.
on a camp faculty that I've gotta do a Zoom meeting for.
Very good. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
See you. See everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was quite pleased that Rabbi Dan could deliver the comments considering he's retiring, but I said, please don't stay for the entire meeting because
We need you for the bylaws.
Well, after I retire, I'll have some more time, I hope, so.
well,
We'll see.
we'll see.
He keeps saying that to every group I've heard.
Yeah.
Next time.
All right, I'm now going to share the screen and we will continue. And let's actually start, well, we'll just work through the agenda here. Kathleen, can you see the agenda? Okay, yes.
Sorry, yes, I can.
So this first item, identify a possible part-time role. I just want to put that out there just to kind of sow the seed, and wouldn't expect this to happen suddenly, but for probably 20 hours a month, we could have somebody helping me with some of the monthly tasks, the newsletter, arranging meetings, kind of keeping up with our emails and whatnot. And I think just for me personally, and those of us who have been working on this for a few years, I think it would re-energize me, especially if it was somebody younger perhaps. Not that it wouldn't have to be somebody younger, but someone who wants to kind of put some climate nonprofit work on a resume. 20 hours a month or so would be meaningful, paid. And so I just wanted to put that out there and get some feedback. And if we are able to feel like, one, we can identify somebody that may be interested, and then two, that we could fundraise a small budget this year, I think it would really help us move our work to the next phase where we have a little more meat around the bone. And then myself and other board members can just kind of guide the longer term vision with some help, kind of basically having somebody paid to do what I've been doing. So just want to throw it out there. Okay,
I have a suggestion.
please.
Just as you think of the things that you're doing that could be taken off your plate by an individual, start formulating a job description. And
Yeah,
since we don't see what you're doing day to day or understand maybe all of the time commitment you're putting into it, I think that'd be helpful
great.
over a period of time, and then we could start, passing the word around, see who materializes.
Great.
I would,
Go ahead, Kathleen.
I just would say, I think there could be really good candidates at Boise State, in the biology department or environmental studies. Some mature, junior or senior could be terrific help.
That's kind of what I had in mind, yeah. I did, a young man who goes to College of Idaho, who's booth and has a faith background and he's studying geology, I believe. And so somebody like that 20 hours a month. And what I'm doing right now, what I envision, 20 hours a month would probably be plenty. It would basically kind of push us into the next chapter, I think, of our organization. And it would kind of give us a reason to fundraise.
Yeah.
If you all happen to meet somebody, just keep that in mind. And Sharon, good recommendation. I will definitely put together a one-page job description with kind of the tasks that would take 20 hours. Or however hours it ends up being. All right, Ken. I spoke to the executive director in Montana, and Montana's IPL has been working for 5 or 6 years, and they now have a part-time executive director over there. And he has invited us to, I'm sorry, Deanie, can you hear us? Oh,
Not yet.
I'll join Deanie. Yeah, we'll join, or welcome Deanie in a second.
She's on that.
Okay, hi Deanie. Yeah, so we've been invited to join this Thursday evening book group for 10 weeks for those interested, and Ken joined last night. So Ken, you just want to give us a brief update of what that is?
Just real fast, last night was our first meeting. There were 14 that participated. I was the only one that wasn't from Montana. Kayla, the executive director up there, did a great job of navigating us through the first meeting. We had to spend, by necessity, a little bit of time explaining what we were doing and why we were having this book study. But my book arrived 2 days before last night's meeting, and I found it I'm finding it very, very helpful and interesting. And of course, we're starting last night. We started with Genesis. It's a good place to start, but it also initiated a lot of discussion because we only got as far as Genesis 1 and 2, actually. It's broken into days, day 1, day 2, day, so you do kind of like a daily reflections. But we got as far as Genesis 1 and 2, and of course we dealt with the whole concept of dominion over all nature, and a lot of things that challenge our thinking about what we're about, and about how that's evolved over time for the better. Yeah, and the breakout of the group that was on last night was, we had, except 14, very similar to the faith representations of this group in terms of denominations. The one that was not present was, and I don't know if they're part of Montana IPL, was the Jewish faith.
Okay.
They were having Episcopalians, and they had 2 Unitarian Universalists, a Methodist. But it was a wonderful exercise. It's every Thursday night at 7 o'clock. Madam did send around earlier the link. Anyone's welcome to join. I'd like to see more people from out of Montana get involved, just because it exposes us to, we have so much in common with Montana on a lot of these issues.
Right.
With pollution. I mean, one lady asked last night, I didn't realize, and it's right there in the first reading, the first day, that pollution is, yes, a sin. And so we wrestled with that concept, and so a lot of, we had people of all ranges of experience, from very familiar with issues, climate issues, and issues dealing with the natural world and our relationship with it, to people just getting their feet wet. So I found it really helpful, and it was a very fun discussion, actually. So I encourage anyone who's interested, and you can drop in one day for the whole 10 weeks, or all day, every day, whatever. So I take all comers, but it's a good discussion if you have and then they try to stay to an hour on Thursday night,
Very
7
good.
o'clock day.
Yes, thank you, Ken.
Sure.
And I will definitely try to join a few. I will send out the link again in a future newsletter, but it was in our past newsletter. And if anything, I thought it might be a good, I don't know, how much was that book?
$12.
$12, okay.
But that also is available online too, as
Oh, okay.
text.
Yeah, it might be nice to identify, because it's not the actual Bible text,
No,
but it's biblical based. It's probably cheap to get order online. And so if in the future we have interest in doing a monthly book group or something, it might be good just to learn from and build from.
I think it's used for book groups a lot, all
Right.
over the place.
Right.
And from what I've been able to research, but I think, yeah, it seems to be fairly popular, so.
Yes, all right, thank you, Ken. All right, next, and Deanie. Hi, Deanie. Glad you could be here.
Hello, thank you.
Yep. We'll have your treasure update in just a minute.
Okay,
The next item that is a fairly large one, but what I'm planning on doing is I just want to introduce the upcoming Spring Climate Festival. We did one last year in 2023, and I think it was a very good start. We did learn a lot from it, and so I think this year's will be an improvement. But last year we did it during the week of Earth Week, which is basically third week of April. And that's definitely doable if we want to shoot for that again. I just need to, if we use Cabby again, I will need to figure out a date with Cabby, of course. But I just wanted to get the green light to start working on that. And then I think the main thing, so we'll hold a couple of Zoom meetings to actually work on this, so we don't need to spend 15 minutes working on this today. But the one thing I wanted to get your all's input on Earth Week again, so I can talk to Cabby. So how do you all feel about trying to get this done again by April? Does that sound doable?
I hope it's doable, and I think it's appropriate.
Yeah, okay.
And
Yeah, I
that
think
last year, the setting was perfect, I thought.
Yeah, good setting. One of the learnings is we need to consolidate everything to one area, because last year was spread out, so we had quite a few people stop by, but it was stopping by over 3 hours and the whole event was spread out, so it just felt sparse. So we'll have it just 2 hours this year is what we decided last year, and we'll keep it all in one area so that everyone can be together. Deanie, I wanted to ask you, do you think your congregation would be interested in having a table again in some capacity?
yes, however, it depends on the date. So a couple things, yeah, I'm gonna be gone. I'm going to Europe.
Nice.
Well, good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll be gone from the 15th through the 29th. So it probably won't work for us unless I can get somebody else in my congregation to do it.
Okay. Well, if there's
Unless we
someone,
want to have it in May, like on May Day, so we're not competing with all the rest of the Earth Week people.
yeah, I
It's an
thought
idea.
about May just because April might be a little bit soon, April or May. So
Okay.
I'll see what Cabby can do, because last year we did it on a Sunday, so that would basically give us 2 Sundays, and if one of those work, I'll report back. Anybody else scheduling thoughts?
Yeah, May 12th is Mother's Day, and I probably wouldn't do it then.
Yeah, agreed.
I was thinking May 5th, maybe.
Okay, we could, Mother's Day, Earth wouldn't work, people wouldn't.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, May 12th is off.
Or the 5th.
When's Easter?
Easter's early, so
Okay.
it's in April.
22nd.
All right, well, I'll talk to Cabby and see when we might be able to use that main social hall. And I will,
Probably the 28th or the 5th would be the best days. I won't be here for the 28th, but I would be here for the 5th.
okay. And Deanie, if you can't be there, I just would appreciate, I think it'd be nice if someone from your congregation could be there. I think it brings a nice spirit, a little bit of diversity for us. And then even like
Yeah.
last year, wouldn't have to put as much work into it, bringing all the plants and whatnot, but having something to link us to your tradition and the earth, and just bringing your spirit to the event in some capacity would be nice.
If I can, yep. If I can do that, if I can get someone to do that. Because I said, if we do it on the 5th, then I can absolutely do it myself. So
Understood. Okay. The other thing I wanted to get in this meeting, because it's probably the one, other than figuring out the venue and date, last year we decided that we should have, last year we just had a solo guitarist who was quite nice from background music, but it was proposed, and we kind of agreed that it would be preferred if we had a worship oriented musician, whether it's a solo musician or a small worship band. So I have one person in mind to reach out to, but if any of you think that someone or a group from your congregation that is more worship focused could work this will probably be like 3 to 5 p.m. on a Sunday.
Jenny Willison is the associate pastor at Hollister United Methodist and a great singer who does singing with a partner. And they did the music at that Interfaith Equality Coalition picnic we had.
Yeah.
So there's an option of
Okay.
someone.
Okay, would you prefer I or you reach out to her? Maybe could you connect me with her and then
I can connect you with her, yeah.
And then
I mean, I don't mind reaching out to her. And you would wanna do it this early because she's busy. She's part-time there and part-time at Taft Elementary as a resource officer.
Okay.
But great advocate and phenomenal musician.
Great.
Depending on how much logistics you wanna do, I would allow you to having play, because it gets buy-in from the sponsoring churches. So if you get, if you rotated like 30-minute windows across 4 groups, it's more logistics, but you all buy-in of those churches or faith groups saying, hey, our own people will be there. But I'm just saying there's the plus and the minus of it. It is a bigger logistical thing. I think there's some folks at Booth. They have because when we did Spirit Fort that one year, they had a musical offering. Dan's a musician.
Yeah. I'm on board with that. If we can
But I'll
find
connect you,
more than-
I'll connect you on an email to Jenny.
Yeah, I'll follow up. Yep. Yeah, if we have more than one group that would like to be there, absolutely, we'll figure out the logistics.
Yeah,
Well, and I can do some exploration at Booth. I don't know the
Great.
musicians personally, but I know who they are, and we have a drumming circle, which might be fun, so
Yeah,
maybe
Yeah,
that would be
I
a.
was there once
Is this-
Sunday for a, this is this Vance?
Oh, Vance.
I don't know, I didn't catch it good.
Vance and Marcia perhaps?
How are you?
There he is.
hey.
Hi, Vance, how are you doing?
Hey, Sharon, pretty good.
Nice to see you.
Pull up anywhere.
You can be right here.
That sounds
Would
good.
you like water or coffee or tea?
I'm gonna have a mug of coffee, it's right
Okay,
here.
I'll do it for you. If you want something in it, just let me know.
Yeah, hey, Ed, good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah. The appointments were running 25 minutes late.
Oh, you're great. You're great.
It was that kind of morning.
That kind of morning, it's a busy practice, yeah.
Yes,
Marcia's
Vance.
gonna come along here in a moment.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Sure then.
Yeah.
Vance, Rabbi Dan led us in an opening meditation.
Oh, how nice.
Yes, and then we're just briefly touching on some business items that the primary one, this Spring Climate Festival we're talking about right now. And
Yeah.
I just wanted to get some of the items that need longer term planning
Right.
agreed upon, but we will have at least 1 or 2 Zoom meetings to do the bulk of the planning work for this. So
Oh, good.
we're just briefly touching
Good.
on
Yeah.
some main points. Okay, so we're in agreement. We will start asking potential musicians and worship artists. And if we get more than one that are interested, we will definitely figure out the logistics to have setups for multiple bands to plug in.
That'd be wonderful, because, plus you get more, like Andrew said, you get the buy-in, and you also might find more members of that particular congregation.
Yes.
Wanted to attend.
Yes.
Can we assign you some extra credit points for saying cross-pollinate with other earth?
I mean, you're getting the extra credit points, but yeah.
So when you talk, so the. Do we?
Oh,
last week?
down there.
Yeah, you had
Got it,
already, you
got
had
it.
already
I
said
get
that, that's
the
why
extra
you get
credit
the
points. Sweet.
I do remember, we went out to Nampa to that green thing.
Yes.
That same week. I couldn't decide if it was advantageous that our events were all clustered together, or if it was a problem because it was all the same people, all the same events. But there was a nice thing, and maybe if we're doing the May 5 date, if that ends up working for Kavi, it could be nice because we could advertise at those events.
Yeah, okay. I
But
don't
I
mind
don't
that. I don't mind that.
Well, I'm just saying, yeah, I mean, I think there's pluses and minuses different ways.
I actually agree with that. I was thinking May might be better just so that we could put more time into it. And I agree that there's so much going on Earth Week.
Yeah,
If we could advertise and not try to fit into that busy schedule, that might be best, especially because weekends. I mean, weekends for families are so busy in any case. All right, well, we'll tentatively target May 5th, but I'll talk to Cabby and see what may work. Hi, Marcia.
Cheer for you.
Hi, Marcia, nice to see you.
All right, those were the items that I thought we should make sure to touch on today. So please be keeping that event in mind and reaching out to potential worship artists. Okay, Deanie, you want to give us a few minutes of a treasury update, please? And Deanie is, of course, our treasurer.
Sure. Adam, I just sent you a photograph of the report. You all, I apologize. I meant to have this copy that I have sent to you all in the email. However, we have a brand new laptop with Windows 11, and I am not familiar with this OS operating system. So I have not been able to link my email to my Word. Anyway, never mind. I am technologically challenged in this event right now, but I did just send you a photo of it, Adam, just so you'd have it too. Okay, so Mountain America Credit Union is who we bank with. My last treasury report covered us through 11/15 of 2022. So since 11/15 of 2022, we had an opening balance in our checking account of $115.06. From November of 2022 until yesterday, we had 9 transactions for the whole time. So April, we had a check deposit of 150, which brought it up to 265. We had some expenditures at Michael's Crafts and Walmart. And after all those expenditures were accounted for, we were down to 233. Then we had another check for 150. Then we're down to $83. We transferred $300 from savings on October 3rd. So we are back up to 383 in the checking account. And then in November, we paid the Squarespace $276, and we paid our web domain $89.88. So the balance, and we transferred another $100 from savings from our savings account on November 22nd, which leaves us with a grand total of $117.15 in our checking account. And then the savings account, of course, had a balance of $500 in it starting November 30th, 2022. We had 2 withdrawals in October and 1 in November for a totaling of $300. And then we had interest of 31 cents to the positive. So our ending balance is $100.42 in our savings account. So we have $100 in our savings account and 117 in our checking account.
Very nice. Thank you, Deanie.
Thank you, Dee.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
in our bank account total. And the main expense from all of that, so the minor expenses, I got some tabling materials. I think it was like 30 bucks or so for a tabling setup. And then the only other major expense on here is our website. And so this is really, one of the reasons I brought up potentially identifying a part-time paid role, because in addition to our very basic expenses that we're doing here, our website and then materials to be in the community, those are really only our expenses from the past year. And if we were to add a part-time paid person, even if it was only 10 or 20 hours a month, I think we would have enough to budget around to say, here's our annual budget, and then to fundraise maybe $5,000 or run a campaign to try to raise some money around a specific budget to, again, to kind of take us into the next, hopefully a more robust phase of our operation. And so $217 in the bank account currently. We probably should do a small fundraise at some point this year. And then the next major expense that we just need to be aware of is in another year, we have another, basically Squarespace is both our website template that we use and our website hosting. And that is basically it's around $200, $230 a year. So that
276.
Thank you, 276, and that comes due. What date was that transaction? It's like
No, November 15th.
Okay, yeah. So in November we'll have our next big transaction. So no pressing matters. But I think we should put together a budget and fundraise at some point. Thoughts on the budget?
I had one idea. I think each of our respective faith communities is involved in our being here, in our being a part of this group. And so I'm pretty sure I can speak for Amaraj when I said we would willingly give a donation. to our funding, just from our faith community, because they want to see this continue. They want to see Idaho Power and Light continue. So I think if each of us could go back to our particular faith group and say, hey, we're part of this, we're just getting started, we're moving forward, we need $200 or $300, 4 or 5, whatever you can afford to keep this going for the next year while we're fundraising. Just an idea.
I agree with that. The other thing that was in my head, April 29th to May 2nd is Idaho Gives, and I think you could get Interfaith Power and Light registered as part of that. And it might be an opportunity to have some grassroots fundraising without us having to design our own fundraising plan. I could see, for instance, in that situation, sending that link out to my congregation as well, so it's not just about,
I think that's a great idea.
I'm 100% on board, Adam, with your interest in trying to push the next phase of the life of IPL, because in my experience, and this is anecdotal, nonprofits can stagnate if they don't keep thinking in terms of how do we get more legitimacy.
Right.
And I'm the first one here to say, it's not getting more legitimacy because I have a lot of extra time to give to it. So I do think that learning to start to have an actual budget, doing some basic fundraising, even having some basic staffing hours to promote those things creates a greater gravity and buy-in, so that people go, well, I actually know what IPL is doing, so I know why I belong to it, or I subscribe to its values, rather than it's a logo we can put in the corner or something.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly my thought. I think it would be re-energizing to all of us and me to define that next phase of our growth. And that's why I do think having a part-time paid person could not only help us build out some of this, but it would give us a reason to fundraise. And then it would allow those of us on the board, like myself, to do more of the just community outreach, networking, where I'm not managing the meetings and the newsletter and the emails and all of that. So yeah, that's. And Deanie, I think that so yes, I will look into registering Idaho IPL for Idaho Gives, so we just have a simple link. And then I agree, Deanie, that if we could do a round of one of us speaking at a few of our associated congregations and just kind of doing a round of sharing what we're up to and why we're fundraising, that would be, I would enjoy that, speaking to some of the congregations.
Do we know what the deadline is for registering with Idaho Gives?
It's open right now. The early bird pricing is over in March. There is and by member, I think we constitute as not a member of the Idaho Nonprofit Center at this moment. So I think our small organization rate would be $111 to register, and I would be happy to cover that cost if we're worried about it.
Okay, thank you, Andrew.
I'm pretty darn sure we'll recoup the cost.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yes, good point. Okay, I will look into the registering for the Idaho Gives, and thank you, Deanie, for standing again to be our treasurer. I appreciate you staying on board with us. All right, and that is basically the business of our meeting, and now we will get to our official board voting. And we'll do this fairly quickly because I think I've spoken to everybody, and it should be pretty straightforward. To my knowledge, those of us who are up for board re-election, if we so choose, have all decided to continue. Is that correct? Is anyone planning? Great, good. So how this works, and I'm continually grateful for Vance for kind of filling in one of my weak points, because I studied accounting, but I'm very much not an accountant. I kind of, Vance is constantly reminding us as we have gotten started as the details of our bylaws and how the timing of how everything should work, but how it should work in our, as stipulated by our bylaws, is board members have a 2-year term, and most of us, myself, Reverend Kukla, Deanie, Ken, Sharon, and Vance, we're all kind of the founding board members, and we basically put the group together and voted ourselves as the initial board halfway through 2022. But the board positions by our bylaws start in January for a 2-year term, and so since it's January, we will all be standing for re-election today. And it sounds like all of us will be putting ourselves forward for another round of election. And so as a slate, I will just propose that myself, Reverend Kukla, Deanie, Ken, and Sharon, and Vance are all re-elected to the board for a 2-year term starting this January, today, 2024. And I will put that forward. Are there any objections to the slate or any individuals on the slate?
I don't know, that Andrew guy's kind of sketchy.
Andrew, yeah. To me, he has 2 personalities, Andrew and Reverend.
Yeah,
Reverend
oh,
Kukla.
okay.
I never know who to talk to.
I would second your motion.
Okay, Reverend Kukla seconds the motion, and there's no objections. All right, all in favor of this slate, raise your hand. All right, any opposed? Lovely. All right, thank you all so much for serving our organization. And I've said this to a few of you in person, but I don't think the time commitment is much right now for most of us, but I do think if we work wisely together over the course of 3 or 4 years, and we do think about our next phase and growing our impact, I think despite just chipping away over a few years, hopefully we leave an impactful legacy in this kind of unique spiritual environmental space. So thank you all for being on the board.
Mhm.
And then last item here, Reverend Kathleen Bean, who's joining us today from Haley, she was elected in January 2023, so she is our first board member of the odd years. And so over the next year, hopefully we'll add a board member or 2, and then we can start to stagger having some of our board re-elected in the even years and some elected in the odd years. And Reverend Bean, you've been quiet. Do you have any thoughts to share?
No, I'm so honored to be on the board and I'm taking notes and thinking about what I can do to be a little more active. So, no, thank you. It's an honor to be on. I do have a really good Catholic friend here in the Valley. If we want someone else from the Wood River Valley who has been engaged in environmental work for decades and is very lively and fun. And so anyway, I'm kind of just nose around too for people who might be good ambassadors for us.
Please. Yeah, having some more denominational diversity would be excellent.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, hopefully the time commitment is understood to be minimal. But each of you who have been, especially our ministers, who have been in the, connected in this space for a long time, every once in a while you can do something that's right in your backyard that's very helpful to us. So just having a board that's engaged is very helpful. So please, Reverend Bean, feel free to extend the invite.
Sorry, have we reached out to Catholic folks in the past? I'm just wondering if there's any, because it's pretty hierarchical in terms of what people do. So I'm just wondering if there's been any outreach to the Catholic folk.
Yes, we just had an event at an Episcopal church to talk about Laudato Si.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but it was and was it well attended by Catholic folks?
I would say yes. Our host, the one who led the discussion, is a member at St. Mary's,
Okay.
and quite a handful from his circle attended. And so there is interest, and we have made the soft ask to see who else might be interested. And at this point, just as a litmus test, Bob Reinhardt, who's a professor at Boise State, he's Catholic, he led the discussion. I kind of broached that conversation with him, Kathleen, and he basically said, yeah, I'll continue to do the outreach, but I mean, I think it's meaningful that we're having this event at an Episcopal church. Meaning there's interest amongst the congregants, but to have the climate discussion at a Catholic church locally, we're not there yet. It's kind of what I from that.
Gotcha. Okay.
But
Okay,
there are
thank you.
interested congregants for sure.
Okay. Well, just tell them the Pope said we could. So there you go.
Yeah, I would think that would go somewhere.
You tell Bishop Christensen that the Pope said we.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was afraid of.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll be happy to stay out of Catholic politics. All right. So let's go ahead and do our amendment to the bylaws, and then for whatever time we have remaining, let's talk about officers. Because technically speaking, we don't need to re-elect officers today because their terms are not stipulated to start in January, but we'll talk about that in a minute. We did want to propose an amendment to the bylaws. So Vance, do you want to discuss that?
Yeah, the first was your sense that 4 required meetings per year was more than necessary. And also, there was an interest in the interplay between in-person and electronic, taking advantage of electronic meetings. And so these 2 amendments address that. So the first one is to reduce the required meetings to 2. Last year, we actually had 3 meetings, Adam. But 3 to whatever. So I just proposed 2, just to put it on the table. And then the other part of this is that the bylaws are very good about addressing electronic ways of doing business, conducting our business. But it did not clarify that the electronic had the same standing as in person. And with Robert's Rules of Order, it allows for electronics, but in the bylaws, you have to state that the electronics has the same standing. And if you don't, then it requires ratification later at an in-person meeting. So it really favors the in-person. And so I wrote an addition to clarify meetings and standing. And it reads like this: meetings may be conducted in person, electronically, through the internet using an online meeting platform, or in a hybrid format combining in-person attendance and online attendance. Electronic meetings shall have the same bearing as in-person meetings, and online attendance shall have the same bearing as in-person attendance. So it really clarifies that, yeah, right. So it really opens up the ways that gives it more flexibility, opens up the ways, and then it clarifies the standing in our bylaws, which is required for it to have the same standing. So, I think that's pretty good wording, but I'm open to any kinds of suggestions that you have. So we'll put those 2 on the table and see where it goes.
Okay, I appreciate you putting the verbiage together. I think that fits our needs almost precisely. And I do think 2 official board meetings a year is adequate to do the official board business.
Right.
And so we had 3 official board meetings last year, and so we were one short, and I will, if the Secretary of State comes hunting anyone, he can come to me. But we had 3, but we also had many more meetings. If you look at the year, we probably had close to 10 meetings and events and whatnot. And so I think being able to have Zoom meetings where we're talking about an upcoming event and a climate festival, and that we can do those, but as far as, getting the board together to vote on amendments and elections and whatnot, I think 2 is the right number.
I think that's good.
Good. Okay, Vance, discussion? Vance has officially moved to add these, and you can see them on the screen. Kathleen and Deanie, can you still see the screen?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so we're officially voting. Vance has moved to add what's in bold and italics to our bylaws. And our bylaws, I try to keep links, so the links for the agendas and the bylaws and everything are always the same. So would someone like to second Vance's motion?
I second.
Okay, Sharon Andrew second. All in favor?
I did have one little input. Vance, you said when we were reading the meeting format, and it says electronic meetings shall have the same bearing, but you use the word standing, shall have the same standing as in-person meetings. Does it make a difference whether we use standing or bearing? That's just a question.
I think standing is a good suggestion, and it occurred to me, it might be in fact, I think it might be a better word than bearing.
I agree.
I think bearing indicates it has the same meaning. And standing is, they're the same. Okay, it kind of equates the 2.
The Presbyterian happy now, because we need a motion to the motion, to substitute the motion. And then we have to use about we have to perfect each motion and then decide which motion we're voting up and down.
We'll start with the changing the standing. So I'll move that we change bearing to standing.
I'll second that.
I'll second it. I second it.
Deanie has seconded her motion that was been further motioned. All right. Okay, so the corrected with its standing is now on the screen. It has been brought to the table and seconded. Any further discussion before we vote? We're officially going to our next phase. We're getting super bureaucratic, yeah.
We have to vote. We have to vote on the standing now. That standing's good. I vote
Sure.
yes.
Call for question.
Oh.
Goodness. All in favor of proposed amendments, raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, it's been approved.
Just a
Thank you all. Thank you,
clarification.
Vance. Yes.
Just a clarification. So these Zoom planning meetings, or a couple of them for the spring conference or the spring climate festival, does that require notification? Is that a special meeting, or do we just do that ad hoc?
Those, they will have notification. I'll announce them in our newsletters.
Okay.
But those planning meetings will exist outside of the official, legal wording of the bylaws.
I figured they would.
So the board meetings will have more structure to them, and then we will follow what's in the bylaws. But yeah, the planning meetings will just be more casual.
That people will know about.
Yep. And we will definitely encourage more people to join those meetings that aren't a lot of board business. Yep. Okay. All right. I guess we have a few minutes, so let's go ahead and talk about officers.
Well, we approved the amendment, but we didn't approve the
Bylaws.
I think he took unanimous consent.
oh, you took unanimous consent? Okay.
Do we need to do something further?
Technically, you would have approved the motion to amend the motion, and then you have to approve the actual amendments.
Right.
But as amended, but we're all happy with what just happened.
Okay.
Here we go, okay.
As far as I know, the amendment was
Yeah,
approved,
we're good.
and it now exists as an amendment in our current bylaws that have already been approved.
To the previous motion, yeah.
Yeah,
Amen.
sounds good, all right,
Okay.
all right.
All right. Good, and again, if the Secretary of State has any questions, my address is publicly posted.
I'll send them your way.
Yeah. Okay, final thing to discuss, and potentially we could vote on this as well. So 2 things here. Listed on the screen are our current officers. We don't have to re-elect until July of this year. But we could just do it now, and I would probably be in favor of doing so. And then the other thing, and I'm gonna surprise Reverend Bean, I think, and it's, so you can say, let me think about it if you want. But there was a misunderstanding, and I think, as far as our notes have it recorded, that a vice president officer is not required. We thought that perhaps it was optional, but I think our bylaws, we should have a vice president.
That is correct. It's not required by the state of Idaho, and we did the incorporation first, and then we drafted bylaws, and we lived with them
Got it.
for a while to see if they worked for us, and then we approved the bylaws. And so since the bylaws have been approved, it does call for 4 officers.
Got it.
And the vice president, we have multiple vice presidents if we wish.
We could, yes.
Right, but it's, it's expressed is the same as the other 3 officers and using the word shall rather than may. So we really should have a vice president. And I'm thinking that there's probably somebody out there who would have terrific skills and leadership ability to fill that position.
Yes.
Do you have somebody in mind, Adam?
Well,
Leading question.
I thought
Yeah.
it
Yes, Kathleen.
might be nice if Kathleen was our vice president.
I was muted. I'll let you off the hook. I would be really delighted to do that. I'd be honored.
Okay, thank you very much. And basically what that means is if we have a schedule, one of our 2 annual board meetings scheduled, and I go down for surgery and I'm under anesthesia, then you have full rights to execute the meeting.
wow,
Okay.
powerful.
All right. I trust I will be called upon very rarely.
I move the re-election of Adam Novak as president, Deanie Gilbert as treasurer, Ken Miller as secretary, and the election of Kathleen Bean as vice president of the board.
I'll second that.
All right, the officers have been moved to be re-elected with the addition of Reverend Bean as our vice president. It's been moved
Moved and seconded.
Moved and seconded. All, can we vote?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All in favor? Raise your hand, please. Okay, any opposed? All right, lovely.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank
Kath.
you. Yeah, thank you.
I think I'll let you know if anything needs to be done, but it shouldn't be any additional time commitment unless for some reason a board member is unable to do something. All right. I like it. So I will, let's see. I will look into registering us with Idaho Gives. And let's all be thinking about our upcoming climate festival, perhaps for May 5th, so that we can promote it during Earth Week events, and it'll be outside, just after Earth Week. And I will ask Cabby about potentially using our social hall on May 5th or thereabouts. And please be reaching out to worship artists that may be able to play some music for us at the Climate Festival. Thank you all very much, and thank you, Reverend Kukla, for hosting us yet again.
Yes, thank you very
Absolutely.
much for your hospitality.
All right, thanks, everybody. Shabbat Shalom for those of you who observe a Sabbath this weekend. Bye.
Nicely done.
Thanks, Kathleen. Nice to see you.
Bye, everybody.